I like GT, and with that said, I really like the Shadow Dragons. Having the final villain of the Dragon Ball franchise be an amalgamation of the negative energy stored inside the Dragon Balls is a fantastic concept, but with the direction Dragon Ball Super is going in, pretty much everything in GT, including the Shadow Dragons, is making less and less sense. We did it with Broly, Oob, and Super Saiyan God, and now this is Dragon Ball GT, the Shadow Dragons redone. The idea of the Shadow Dragons is that all 7 were once a part of the original dragon. Remember that blue dragon who was smoking a cigar? He has the combined power of all 7 dragons, and as a lot of you know, once Sin Shenron merges with his other counterparts, he becomes near unstoppable, and that is the first thing that I would change. Think about the Earth Dragon Balls. Shenron is so limited with his power. Remember all the way back to the Saiyan arc, he was asked to take out Nappa and Vegeta, but he says that that is far beyond his power. Nappa and Vegeta were so weak that their power was soon to be surpassed by Krillin in the next story arc, and that makes me wonder if someone asked Shenron to take out someone like Krillin, I just assume that would be beyond his power. So one thing I could never understand is why the Shadow Dragons are so powerful. If they're based off Shenron, who is limited, in my mind their power should not surpass that of their creator. So as we know, each dragon varies in strength. There's not really an explanation as to why, but they just do. The dragons formed from Earth's Dragon Balls should not be powerful at all. In fact, for it to make sense, the weakest guy should be around Kami or Dende's level, and the strongest should be just under Raditz. However, once they all fuse into one, I'd put them close to Vegeta's power level in the Saiyan saga. To think that these guys were actually competing with Super Saiyans is just kinda dumb. Now, since in my version they are weak, I would redesign Sin, Nova, and Ice Shenron, just to be a little less intimidating. Something else to mention is where would I put this in the timeline, and to be honest, I wouldn't. If I'm making the majority of these guys weaker than Raditz, then I guess the best place to put the storyline would be in the 5-year gap between the transition from Dragon Ball to Z, but even still I wouldn't do that. The concept of the Shadow Dragons shouldn't be introduced that early. It is said that the negative energy grows inside the Dragon Balls over multiple wishes, so it would make more sense for a storyline like this to take place near the end of the series. This is where we introduce the real Shadow Dragons. Anyone who's been keeping up with DB Super would know that we have gotten what is known as Super Dragon Balls. Supposedly these were the original wish-granting orbs spread out between both Universe 6 and 7, and the Dragon Balls on Earth and Namek are just lower class versions, and instead of being limited, these things are said to be limitless. Even if the Super Dragon Balls were created with a good intention, every yin must have its yang, and just like the normal Dragon Balls, they will crack over time. This is where things get tricky. Since the Dragon Balls we're looking at are limitless, technically if we're trying to be consistent with the continuity, these universal Shadow Dragons should be limitless too. But we can't have 7 infinitely powered dragons, so what's going to happen is 7 of them individually will be around the same strength. However, once they come together, they will have the same power as the Dragon God Sarama. A story like this would mean Dragon Ball Super would have to go on for much longer. Considering for these guys to even be a threat, the Super Dragon Balls need to be overused. In terms of strength, just to make it simple, the dragon based off of the 7-starred ball would be weaker than the dragon based off the 6-star ball, follow that down all the way and the dragon based off the 1-starred ball would be the strongest. Just like how in GT the Earth was slowly polluting, it will be the entirety of Universe 6 and 7, so quite literally entire multiverses could be destroyed. A massive problem with the Shadow Dragons that we got in GT is that most of them were too easily forgettable. Does anyone know this guy's name? Because a lot of these dragons, with the exception of Sin, Nova and Ice, weren't actual threats, and while that works for the Earth Shadow Dragons, I'm talking about Universal Shadow Dragons. Either way, to sum up what each Shadow Dragon would represent, we have fire, ice, space, energy, time, darkness, and finally the most powerful Shadow Dragon, just like Sin Shenron, won't have a specific element to relate to. Finally, we have to talk about how strong a universal Shadow Dragon will be. Since we don't have any other way of power scaling, remember when Toriyama said that Beerus was a 10, Whis was a 15, I'd put the weakest universal dragon at 25, and the strongest at 30. However, when they all fuse, considering they would be tapping into the power of Zarama, I'd put them at around 100, maybe even more. Anyway, that is how I would redo the Shadow Dragons to make it work with the Dragon Ball Super continuity. Let me know how you would redo the Shadow Dragons, and as always, I will see you in the next DBZ video.